Ever thought about getting a thigh lift? Or maybe you're just a little curious what's involved. Well, today we'll dive into some info on thigh lifts in Mumbai from HealR.co.in. And let me tell you, it's way more than I realized at first.
It really is. There's so much that goes into getting the results people want. It's not as straightforward as it might seem.
Right. We're talking thighplasty here, which basically means removing extra skin and fat to create a smoother, more toned look. Sounds pretty simple on the surface, you know?
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting. HealR.co.in talks about 4 different types of thigh lifts.
Exactly. And that right there tells you how personalized this can get. You've got inner, outer, medial, even mini thigh lifts. Each one's for a very specific area to match someone's body and goals.
Okay, so let's break that down for our listeners, shall we? What makes someone a good candidate for each one? Like, how's an inner thigh lift different from, say, one on the outer thigh?
Great question. Imagine this, you've lost weight, which is fantastic, but now you've got some loose skin on those inner thighs. It rubs together when you walk, maybe when you exercise, kind of uncomfortable. That's where the inner thigh lift comes in. It removes that excess skin and tightens things up so you're more comfortable. You look better.
Makes total sense. So it's not just about how it looks, but how you feel in your own skin every single day.
You got it. Now an outer thigh lift, that one targets the area from your hip down to the outer thigh. People tend to get sagging there as they get older or after major weight loss.
So if someone's self-conscious about that saddlebag area, that's when an outer thigh lift might be what they're looking for.
Could be, yeah. It reshapes and redefines that whole outer thigh area. Then there's the medial thigh lift. That one focuses on the area from the inner knee up towards the groin. Tricky spot, that one, because it tends to hold on to both extra skin and D fat.
So someone worried about both their inner A and D, upper thigh, the medial lift would be a more all-in-one approach for them.
Exactly. It tackles that whole inner thigh region in a bigger way. And you mentioned the mini thigh lift before, less invasive, usually for a smaller area, like just the lower inner thigh. Good for people with more focused concerns who want a faster recovery.
Sounds like HealR.co.in is all about making it personal, tailoring the procedure to each person.
And speaking of individual needs, can we talk benefits? Obviously, getting rid of that extra skin and fat's the big one. But I like how HealR.co.in goes deeper than just the surface. They talk about a thigh lift, boosting your self-confidence, how you feel about your body image. That's huge.
Yeah, it's interesting they emphasize that, isn't it? Shows they get that these procedures have a bigger impact than just what you see in the mirror. We focus on the physical changes, but the emotional, mental side of it. That's huge too, wouldn't you say?
100%. Feeling good, feeling confident in your own body, that can be life-changing. And let's be real, who doesn't love clothes fitting better? That's got to feel good. It's those little everyday wins that make the difference. But important to remember, as great as the results can be, a thigh lift isn't some magic bullet.
So true. And HealR.co.in is very upfront about that. They're clear that ideal candidates are at or close to their ideal weight already. They even have a whole FAQ about how it's not a weight loss solution.
Yeah, that's a common misunderstanding. Thigh lifts are meant for that extra skin and fat that just won't budge with diet and exercise alone, especially after you've lost a lot of weight or as we naturally age.
So it's more about refining, sculpting, not necessarily shrinking you down.
Exactly, which is why being realistic is so important. Anyone thinking about this needs to have a very open, honest talk with their surgeon about what's possible, what their own personal journey will be like.
Couldn't agree more. Setting realistic expectations from the get-go is so important. And it seems like HealR.co.in really gets that they lay out their whole approach really clearly on their website, which I appreciate.
They do. Transparency is key with these kinds of procedures. It can feel overwhelming. There's so much to consider.
Right. And they start with that personalized consultation, like you said, to really understand what the individual wants, what they're concerned about. No pressure, just a good old-fashioned conversation. I bet that makes people feel a lot more comfortable.
Totally. It's a chance to ask anything, get those worries off your chest, and make sure everyone's on the same page before doing anything.
Exactly. And when it comes to moving forward, they seem really aware of scarring, which makes sense. That's a big deal for people. They even use the term strategic incisions. Did they explain what that actually means?
Yeah, they do, at least in a general sense. They don't get super technical, which makes sense, but the idea is they're really careful about where they make the cuts so the scars are less likely to be noticeable, like hiding them in the natural creases and folds of the skin.
So say you're someone who's worried about a scar being visible, like you wear a lot of swimsuits, shorter clothes. That technique would be a game changer.
Exactly. Minimizing those long-term marks is key to getting the best aesthetic outcome.
Smart. And then on top of that, HealR.co.in mentions their facilities are state-of-the-art. They've got all the latest technology. They clearly put a lot of effort into giving their patients a really high-quality experience.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. We've talked benefits, the personalized approach. But what about recovery? What's someone actually in for after a thigh lift?
$1 million question right there.
Oh.
We've got to be real. Any surgery means recovery time. With a thigh lift, expect some swelling, bruising, discomfort. That's totally normal.
Of course, it's not like you're going to bounce right back. Although HealR.co.in does say they focus on pain management, so they work with you to make sure you're as comfortable as possible, especially those first few days.
Huge. And they also talk about using a compression garment, which is pretty standard after a thigh lift. Helps minimize the swelling, keeps everything supported as you heal.
So those first days, even weeks, it's all about taking it easy, listening to your doctor, letting your body do its thing. No marathons right after surgery.
Exactly. They recommend a good 2 to 3 weeks off work, no strenuous activity during that initial healing period. But it's not just physical, is it? There's a mental and emotional component to recovering from any surgery, especially one that changes how you look.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
I imagine it takes time to adjust to your new shape,
Yeah.
how you feel in your own body.
Exactly. And even though you'll see some initial results right away, it does take a while for the swelling to go down completely and for the tissues to settle. Those wow results, the final outcome, that takes a few months to really show.
Patience is key. It's a marathon, not a sprint, as they say. But the good news is HealR.co.in says the results can last a really long time as long as you take care of yourself.
Totally. They emphasize keeping your weight stable, living a healthy lifestyle that's crucial for long-term results. Oh, and sun protection. Can't forget about that. Keeps your skin healthy and looking its best.
So it's an investment in the procedure, sure, but also in maintaining those results long term. Now, we've covered a lot of positives, but I'm curious, does HealR.co.in talk about any risks or complications? There's always a flip side, right? It's really important for them to be upfront about that because, let's be honest, there's no such thing as a risk-free surgery, right?
You're absolutely right, and I have to hand it to HealR.co.in. They do a really good job of explaining those potential issues.
Yeah, they talk about the usual things you'd expect, like infection, bleeding, reactions to the anesthesia. I mean, those are risks with any kind of surgery.
Exactly. Those are always there, but they're usually managed well during and after the procedure. But they also mention a few risks that are specific to thigh lifts. I think those are the ones that people really want to know about.
Oh, absolutely. Those are the details that'll really make someone stop and think if they're seriously considering this.
For sure, for sure. So first up, there's a chance of what they call unfavorable scarring. Even with those careful incisions they make, everyone's skin heals differently, right? Some people just scar more easily than others.
That makes sense, and honestly, that's a huge concern for a lot of people thinking about any cosmetic procedure. And with a thigh lift, the incisions are bigger than, say, a facelift or something.
Absolutely. And then there's the chance your skin sensation could change after. You might feel numb, tingly, maybe even more sensitive in that thigh area.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought about that. What causes that to happen?
Usually it's from the nerves and tissues being moved around during the surgery. Most of the time it's temporary. The feeling comes back gradually as you heal.
Okay, that's good to know. But they did say it could be permanent in some cases.
It is a possibility, yeah, though it's not that common. And that's why that first consultation is so important. It's the time to talk to the surgeon, be really open and honest about any risk factors you might have, get any worries off your chest.
It's all about being informed, right? Making sure you're comfortable and confident in your decision. And it seems like HealR.co.in is all about making sure their patients are informed.
Oh, totally. I was really impressed by their FAQ section. They answer so many questions, how much it costs, the recovery time, even what to expect at your follow-up appointments.
It's like they've thought of everything, which is what you want when you're thinking about a procedure this big, this life-changing.
100%. They even have a question about what happens if you're not happy with the results, which not everyone thinks about. They explain how they'd address that, how they work with you to get the best outcome possible. Shows real commitment to their patients.
Definitely shows they care about more than just the surgery itself. It's about building trust, making sure you're happy with the whole experience. Well, this deep dive has been fascinating. We've covered so much ground, learned a lot.
We have, and it's been great having you here to share your insights.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to chat with someone who knows their stuff.
Anytime. But just a reminder to our listeners, this has been a great overview, but it's just a starting point.
Exactly. If you're intrigued, definitely go check out healr.co.in. They've got even more info on their site, including before and after photos and testimonials.
Those photos can really help you visualize the possibilities.
They really can. But before we go, let's leave everyone with a little something to think about. We've talked about how a thigh lift changes your body. But how much do you think our appearance really affects our self-confidence? Is it just skin deep, or is there something more to it?
That's a really interesting question. Everyone's different, but it's definitely worth exploring.
It is. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of thigh lifts. Until next time. Keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and keep diving deep into the topics that spark your curiosity.